The fluorescent hospital lights buzzed over me, a constant, humming sound that washed everything in that cold, sterile white. It was the kind of light that made people look more like ghosts than family. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a great weight, every breath rattling out shallow and broken. The nurse had just secured the oxygen mask over my face, her voice a soft murmur telling me to stay calm, that the doctor was on his way. My fingers, thin and trembling, gripped the sides of the bed, a desperate attempt to hold on to something solid while the world dissolved into a blurry mess around me, and then I saw them, walking through the doorway, my parents. For one brief, stupid second, a little flame of hope flickered inside my collapsing chest. Maybe this time they were here for me. Maybe they would sit by my side and hold my hand. But the way my dad's eyes narrowed into tiny slits, the way my mom's lips curled into that familiar, bitter sneer, I knew better. That little flame died instantly, leaving behind only cold ash. Dad didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't even glance at the frantic monitor beeping, a desperate rhythm by my bed. Instead, he walked over with that slow, heavy gait of his work boots echoing across the tiled floor like a judge's gavel. His hand, calloused and rough, went straight to the clear plastic mask pressed to my face. I gasped, my weak hand clutching at his wrist, but his grip was like iron. With one swift, brutal motion, he yanked the mask off. The hiss of the oxygen cut out. A sound like hope itself being strangled in the quiet room. "Save it for someone who matters," he muttered, his voice sharp and low. Every word was a razor, slicing into me deeper than the pain in my lungs. The air burned as I tried to pull it into my failing lungs without help. My chest rose and fell in violent, useless spasms. Every inhale was like swallowing fire and glass. My hand shook as I reached a silent plea toward him, but he just stepped back, tossing the life-giving mask onto a nearby chair like it was a piece of trash. Behind him, my mom let out a laugh. It wasn't a small, nervous sound. It was loud, sharp, and full of a cruelty that filled the entire sterile room with poison. "Who would love garbage anyway?" she sneered, folding her arms across her chest. She watched me struggle, her eyes cold and distant, as if I were nothing more than a stain on the floor. An inconvenience she had to step around. Her words stabbed me worse than the lack of air. Garbage. That's all I had ever been to them. A broken toy. A mistake. I wanted to scream, to tell them I wasn't garbage, that I mattered, that I was their son, but no sound could escape my throat, choked off by the desperate need for oxygen and the suffocating weight of years of their cruelty. The nurse hurried back in, her eyes wide with panic and disbelief. She quickly grabbed the mask, shoving past my dad with a force that surprised me. "What are you doing? He needs this," she yelled, her voice shaking with anger. She forced the oxygen mask back over my face, holding it firm against my skin with both hands as if she feared my father would rip it away again. My lungs clawed at the fresh, cool air, dragging it in desperately. Dad sneered at the nurse, his voice a low growl. "You're wasting your time. He's nothing but dead weight. Let him learn his place." My mom's laughter softened into a sickeningly sweet coo. She leaned closer to me, brushing a stray strand of hair off my damp forehead with a touch that felt like fake tenderness. "Maybe this is what you need," she whispered, her breath hot and sour on my ear. "A little reminder that people like you don't get saved." Tears finally broke free, blurring my vision. They spilled down the sides of my face into the hospital pillow. Hot tears, not just from the physical pain, but from the deeper, soul-crushing agony of knowing that the two people in the world who were meant to protect me were the ones who wanted me broken. The nurse tried to push them toward the door, but Dad shoved her back with one powerful hand. "We're his family," he snapped, as if that title gave him the right to torture me. "This is our business." My mom's voice, colder and crueler this time, cut through the air again. "Family. Don't make me laugh. You're not family. You're the shadow we can't seem to get rid of. Nothing more." Every word they spoke pressed down on me like another heavy stone on my chest. My body shook, trembling on the thin line between life and despair. My mind screamed for help, for someone to see what was truly happening behind closed doors. But the room seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in, the machines beeping louder and louder, as if they were mocking my weakness. And through it all, their faces hovered over me, masks of disgust, delighting in my suffering. The mask on my face hissed softly, filling my lungs with the air I needed to live. But my parents' voices filled my soul with poison. In that moment, staring at them, through the blur of tears and fluorescent light, I realized something I had never let myself fully admit before. They didn't just dislike me. They didn't just hate me. They wanted me erased. And for the first time, as the oxygen steadied my breathing and cleared my head, a different kind of fire lit inside me. It was a quiet, fragile ember of defiance. But it was there, and it whispered a promise to myself: if they want me gone, I'll give them something they'll never, ever forget instead. The days that followed that horrible night blurred into an endless haze of needles, humming machines, and shallow, painful breaths. But even as my body slowly tried to heal, my parents' cruelty only sharpened. They didn't leave after the mask incident. They lingered, like vultures circling. Every day they would visit, not with flowers or words of comfort like the other families I saw, but with smirks and venom disguised as concern. Dad would stand by the window, his hands tucked deep into his pockets, looking at me the way you'd look at something rotting on the side of the road. "The doctors waste too much money on you," he'd mutter, his voice dripping with disdain. "Do you have any idea how much this room costs per day? Beds like this should go to people who actually contribute something to the world." Mom wasn't any softer. She'd perch on the edge of the chair beside my bed, cross her long legs, and pick at imaginary lint on her expensive sleeve while saying things designed to burrow deep under my skin. "You should have died the first time you got sick as a child," she said one afternoon, her voice casual, like she was discussing the weather. "That would have been merciful for everyone. Instead, you just keep clinging on, like some kind of parasite." I clenched my fists under the thin hospital blanket, my nails digging into my palms until the small, sharp crescents of pain reminded me that I was still here, still alive. And though their words stung like acid, I started to listen differently. I wasn't just hearing the hate anymore. I was hearing what they revealed about themselves. I noticed how Dad would check his watch constantly, always impatient, like he was late for something far more important. I saw how Mom would complain about missing real family moments because she was stuck here babysitting trash. Their lives didn't revolve around me. I was just a punching bag. But one they couldn't resist returning to again and again. Then came the night that changed everything. The ward was quiet, the air still, most of the other patients asleep. The only light came from the dim, rhythmic glow of the machines blinking around me. I lay awake, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, when I heard their familiar footsteps approaching. My heart tightened into a hard knot. Dad walked in first, his large silhouette blocking the light from the hallway, followed by Mom. She was carrying a small paper bag that crinkled as she set it on my bedside table. "What's that?" I rasped, my throat still raw. My mom's smile widened, a perfect painted slash of red. "Dinner," she said sweetly, pulling out 2 slices of rich chocolate cake on paper plates. "For us, not for you. You don't deserve sweet things." Dad chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. He pulled up the visitor's chair, sitting so close I could smell the bitter temps of his aftershave. He leaned in, lowering his voice as if he were telling me a dark secret. "You are nothing but a rehearsal for us. Do you get that? Every single mistake we made raising you, we're fixing with your sister. She's the masterpiece. She matters. You don't." The words sliced deeper than any of the surgery scars that lined my side. My breath caught, and the inside of the oxygen mask fogged with the tears I refused to let fall. My mom shoved a plastic fork into her cake, taking slow, exaggerated bites while keeping her eyes locked on me. "We gave her everything," she said through a mouthful of frosting. "And you're just here to remind us what failure looks like." I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the four from my arm and run until my lungs burst for real. But my body was too weak, a prison of flesh and bone. All I could do was lie there and watch as they laughed and ate cake beside my hospital bed, while I was starving for a single crumb of love that would never come. But inside me, something shifted. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was cold, hard calculation. Every condescending laugh, every cruel insult, every smug sneer became fuel. My mind, which had been foggy from medication, began to sharpen with one single, clear thought: they want me to feel worthless. I will make sure they choke on the worth they refused to see. I started noticing the little things. The way Mom always clutched her designer purse, like it held her entire identity. The way Dad's voice would drop an octave with pride whenever he mentioned his company. I realized their greatest fear wasn't losing me. They feared losing their perfect image. One afternoon, a kind nurse came to check my vitals, muttering under her breath about how unfortunate my family situation was. When I asked her what she meant, she hesitated, then said, I see families in here every day. Most of them cry, most of them pray. Yours. They laugh, they call you names. People notice. Her words were like a match lighting a fuse. People were watching. My parents' cruelty wasn't as invisible as they thought. That tiny ember of defiance I'd felt the first night began to spark and grow into something hotter, something stronger. I didn't let on, of course. When they came back the next evening, Mom wearing a new silk scarf and Dad bragging about a big deal he'd just closed, I stayed quiet. I let them spit their venom, nodding meekly as if I was absorbing every poisoned word. But beneath the silence, my plan was taking root. They wanted me erased. Fine, I would erase the one thing they clung to most, their precious, untouchable pride. And as the machines hummed their steady rhythm, and my body slowly, painstakingly regained its strength, I started preparing the revenge they would never see coming. The day I was discharged, the sun outside felt too bright, too sharp, like it was mocking me for walking out of that hospital alive when my parents had done everything in their power to snuff out my light. They didn't even come to pick me up. I stood on the curb, weak and unsteady, clutching a plastic bag with my few belongings while other families embraced their loved ones. Dad's voice echoed in my head. Beds like this should go to people who actually contribute something. Mom's laughter still clung to me like a bruise. I swore in that moment that I would never give them the satisfaction of seeing me break again. But real revenge isn't loud and explosive. It's quiet. It's patient. It's like a seed planted deep, in the dark, cold dirt, waiting for the perfect moment to rise and break the surface. I took a cab back to my small, lonely apartment, and every step from the curb to my door felt like walking on fire. But with each painful breath, I forced myself to remember their faces. Their smug certainty that I would always stay beneath them. That memory became my weapon. Weeks passed. I stayed completely silent. They never bothered to check in. Why would they? In their minds, the garbage had been taken out. But while they were gloating in their comfortable, perfect world, I was slowly piecing myself back together. And I was planning. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. My sister, the golden child they worshipped, was about to have her extravagant 18th birthday party. It was the kind of lavish event my parents lived for: caterers, photographers, important guests, and heartfelt speeches, all of it staged to show the world what a perfect daughter they had raised. I knew they would be there, smiling like saints, presenting themselves as the most loving and devoted family imaginable, and I knew it was the exact stage I needed. I reached out quietly. Not to them, but to the event planner they'd hired. I offered her a significant amount of cash money I didn't really have, scraped from my last savings for one small favor. It was worth every single cent. I didn't need to ruin my sister's night. She wasn't the true enemy here. I only needed one thing: the microphone. The night of the party, I walked into that grand ballroom completely unnoticed. They hadn't invited me, of course, but that didn't matter. I blended in with the well-dressed crowd, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would burst. The crystal chandeliers glowed above. The tables were draped in white silk, and at the center of it all, Mom and Dad were laughing louder than anyone, basking in the admiration of their guests. When the lights dimmed for the speeches and the host called for a few words from the proud parents, I made my move. I stepped forward, my body feeling steady even though my hands were trembling slightly. I took the microphone from the stunned host. Gasps rippled through the room. My mother's perfectly painted smile faltered. My dad's jaw tightened into a hard line. "I won't take much of your time," I said, my voice, amplified, carrying across the silent ballroom. "I just wanted everyone here tonight to know what kind of people you're celebrating. Get off the stage right now," my mother hissed from her table. But I ignored her. "These two," I said, gesturing toward them with the microphone, "came to the hospital while I was fighting for my life just a few weeks ago. And do you know what they did?" The room fell utterly silent, a suffocating silence that chokes the air out of a room. My father pulled the oxygen mask off my face and told me to save it for someone who matters. And my mother, I continued, my voice steady, laughed and said, "Who would love garbage anyway?" Guests turned their heads, their eyes wide with shock. Whispers started to ripple through the crowd like a virus. A woman in the front row shook her head in disgust. A man near the back muttered, "My God." My dad shot to his feet, his face a blotchy red. "He's lying. He's always been a liar," he barked. But it was too late. The perfect image had cracked. People weren't seeing them as proud, doting parents anymore. They were seeing them as the monsters they truly were. I pulled something small from my pocket, the faded plastic hospital wristband, still stained with a dark speck of my own blood. I held it up for everyone to see. This is what they were looking at when they laughed and ate cake beside my bed. My mom tried to force a laugh, to dismiss it all as a joke, but the sound came out hollow and strangled. Guests physically recoiled from their table. Even my sister, draped in her glittering designer gown, was looking at them with a new expression. Something between horror and shame. I didn't wait for them to speak again. I handed the microphone back to the frozen host and walked out of that ballroom. The crushing weight of years of their humiliation lifted from my shoulders with every single step. The fallout was fast and brutal. Their friends stopped answering their calls. My dad's most important business partners quietly pulled back, unwilling to be associated with someone whose private cruelty was now public gossip. My mom's precious social circle, built entirely on status and envy, collapsed overnight. The very people they had tried so hard to impress now saw them as nothing more than heartless abusers. The best part, I never said another word to anyone about it. I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to explain. I didn't have to plead my case. I just vanished from their lives completely, letting the quiet, damning echo of my truth do all the work for me. For weeks, they tried to reach me. Dozens of calls, angry texts, even showing up and banging on my apartment door. But I never answered. My silence became my final, most powerful weapon. And then one day, I saw them. I was walking through town, and I saw them on the other side of the street. My dad was slumped, his shoulders stooped. My mom's face looked hollow and gray without its mask of makeup and pride. I watched as people they knew saw them coming and quickly crossed the street to avoid them. They were alone, isolated in a prison of their own making. For the first time in my life, I finally let myself smile. Because in the end, they were the ones left gasping for air. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.